Last week, we talked about our lessons learned from the best ball championship, regular season playoffs, and now we're on to a new subject. We'll circle back. We'll circle back in a little bit, a few weeks, next week, something on the regular season, things to take away for 2022. But we only have one more week to draft some of these best ball playoff contests. We had some just anarchy yesterday in the NFL. So it's a perfect time to start to dig into maybe some things that we learned from yesterday, some things that we've learned from the last few weeks of drafting for these playoff contests, and try to apply them for the next week, the next 5 days into our best ball playoff drafts. So let's get it. Good afternoon, GA, not GM, GA. Good afternoon, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone is having a wonderful, my AirPods are not cooperating, but hopefully everyone is having a wonderful Monday. Hopefully the week 18, the first week 18 slate of all time, treated everyone well. DFS, if you're playing, if you have some kind of sick season-long league that's playing in week 18, hopefully that went well. It certainly did not for me, but I thought, with what was the chaos of yesterday, right? We've been drafting, if you've been in the Spike Week community, we've been drafting these playoff best ball teams for a while, since they opened, right? I mean, shoot, the multiple mittens have already filled. The gauntlet is, half full or something like that. Now, big mitten, hopefully on its way to getting closer to full. And, you're constantly evolving your thoughts, but also playing the game theory side of things with ever-changing ADPs. And, I mean, I think back right now already to when these contests opened, like the first mitten and the gauntlet when they opened. And you think about them, and it's great. It's nuts, like Devin Singletary super late, right? JT for third overall, fourth overall. The Chargers are all in the top few rounds. So how much has changed in those drafts, right? 49ers were mixed in the middle, kind of. The Bengals were all like super, super late round picks. I'm trying to even think, obviously the Raiders were not even being drafted. The Eagles still really aren't being drafted. There was so much that was different that, when these things started, and even different not that long ago that were different. And, like the Chiefs even. Take the Chiefs into account. We made the assumption that the Chiefs, looks like my wife just texted me that I have the wrong AirPods. I was wondering why they weren't working. So this is high quality entertainment here. I'm like, I can't get my damn AirPods to work. And my wife just texted me, pretty sure you have my headphones. And she's like, you do. So the audio from this streaming is either she's trying to get my headphones, just an absolute shit show. And so now she's bringing me down my AirPods. She doesn't want to get in the view. Thank you. High quality entertainment. Let me see if this works now. But what I was oh, see now, Jesus, this is awful, right? Now I got to give her these AirPods. Can't wait to put this on the podcast feed and have everybody just listen to me talk through exchanging AirPods with my wife. for a minute or whatever. So anyway, playoff best ball. We're obviously doing this show to try to like have some takeaways, right? And not even just like my personal takeaways, your takeaways. Just think through some of these things that we're seeing happen, right? And try to see how we can apply them moving forward to draft better, right? To make more money at the end of the day. And I think the chaos of yesterday, like I was saying, and the ever-changing ADPs that we've had over the course of all these playoff best ball contests is like maybe like one of the best like lessons that we can learn, right? Because we haven't like we've had the results on who's made the playoffs. We haven't had like the playoff results yet, right? So we've barely even made it to step one of this whole process versus, like last week when we're really breaking down what happened in the best ball finals and like instant reactions to 2022 and thinking about that moving forward. It's really easy to get anchored to the results and what literally just happened the day before or the night before. This is like, a drafting environment that we joke about in the regular season, like the wide receiver craze, like say on Underdog, and that was nothing compared to what we've seen in these playoff best ball contests, right? The Chargers went from like, you'd have to draft Austin Eckler in the second round to like barely getting drafted after they lost the Texans. And then now obviously they're eliminated from the playoffs after the crazy game last night. And so the first thing I thought about is just, trying to figure out ways to manipulate the ADP in these contests moving forward. And what we're seeing so far I'm actually going to try to pull up like even just Underdog while we're talking about this, because we're even just seeing, let me go just like to the rankings. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So if we just look at Underdog, NFL, these are projections. We don't have ADP. What's a good way for me to look at is there a way to look at the ADP? Maybe if I go to completed, go to my last gauntlet or something. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's look at my last gauntlet. You guys can even see. If we look at my last gauntlet, right? Which is obviously not a perfect representation of like where ADP is and everything. But you see, I took Stephon Diggs number 2 overall. So that's funny. Yeah, I went to hold on real quick. I went to rankings. Oh, geez. It's probably because I didn't have playoff. There we go. Thank you, guys. Also, we joke about the amount of Eriks that show up to the stream, and literally within Paul V and Paul. Spider-Man meme. That's weird. Something about people with the same names on this show. I don't know what it is. So if we look through the ADPs, right? First of all, it is somewhat funny. I won't make a true comment on it, but the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players are wide receivers. Next is quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, wide receiver. Don't get till Derrick Henry at an ADP of 12 until we get to a running back. No comments on running backs for me with that. However, when we start, like I want to kind of like just quickly run through some of this ADP. Maybe we can even hop in a draft later to wrap this up. But I'm actually going to look at running back because Singletary is the one guy that like just jumps out to me when I think about rising ADPs like this. I'll actually even do that. Let me go to completed early. Go to early 2021 playoffs. I bet I took Singletary in one of my first few drafts here. Probably. Nope. Let's see if I can see it. Yeah. So look at this. One of my first drafts. I am the 101. And so look at this. This is one of my first playoff drafts. So you're going to talk about lessons in ADP movement in playoff drafts. Obviously, I took Devontae 101. Diggs comes all the way back to the 2-3 turn. He's now basically a first round pick. Josh Allen is there with Diggs at the 2-3 turn. You now have to take them, you hope that you can get them at the 1-2 turn. I took Damian Harris in the 4th round. AJ Dillon in the 5th round. Those are obviously no longer as good of values. Oh, look at this. Vikings. Took a Vikings secondary stack with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Obviously, that did not go well. But Devin Singletary, literally the last pick of the draft, Devin Singletary, to start out these playoff, like at the very beginning of these playoff contests. We look back at the end again. Oh, Herbert was super late. So some of these have remained similar. Jamar Chase at 45th overall, right? Joe Mixon at 42nd overall. Derrick Henry, here's a good one. Derrick Henry, 47th overall. Now we go look at the rankings, and Devin Singletary, who I took with he was going to go undrafted. Devin Singletary, gosh dang it, I keep going to the wrong. Devin Singletary is now the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6th running back selected. Trending towards passing Zeke, by the way. He goes ahead of Zeke. I did some drafts today, and he goes ahead of Zeke. But he's an ADP of 23.6. And I had, in the very first time I took him, I had him with literally was going to be undrafted. So I think something that I want to think about after we get through this week, right? When we get to next year and we start to, get to the end of next year and think about these drafts is like really, yeah, this is how it should be. I don't know why Pollard goes after Zeke. When we get to next year is think about the kinds of guys that can be risers and the kinds of guys that can be fallers, right? So what we saw this year was obviously Devin Singletary is my favorite example of that like crazy riser that happened in the draft. As Paul says, I mean, literally the last pick of the draft. As Paul V, Spider-Man, the other Paul says, the top 2 running backs by ADP are not even playing in the wild card week. That doesn't even take into account the fact that Devin Singletary used to be had at the end of the draft, and now he's catapulted up. Jonathan Taylor is not even in the playoffs. Austin Eckler is not even in the playoffs. Right? People were drafting Ravens, right? Didn't make the playoffs. And so, I don't think that there's like some like answer to how do you approach these teams that are fragile in terms of making the playoffs, right? I tend to be, and I think a lot of the people like in the Spike Week Discord, the Spike Week community, were on like fairly same page. Like we're willing to, like I was still in on the Chargers even after they lost to the Texans, knowing that they needed to win out and probably need a little bit of help, but they definitely needed to win out. Obviously that did not happen. I was comfortable doing that because of what I thought the payoff was. Like I thought that this was a team that could not only like produce, but they could win some games. And so I was comfortable doing that. However, that also led me being confident in the Chargers when the market was also confident in the Chargers led to them being, I can even pull up some of these, not results, completed early drafts. Let's look at some more of the early drafts. Led to, I'm sure there's a team. Here's another Devin Singletary, picked 58, and he had an ADP of 79. I really liked the Patriots here on this team. Dylan, Eli Mitchell. Here's your, oh boy. Oh, look at that. I took Jimmy G. I don't remember any of these teams, by the way, so that's funny. RIP Chris Godwin and AB. Woof. But yeah, so Keenan, right? Keenan going 33rd overall. I'm pretty certain I took Eckler, so I really want to find an Eckler team. Lots of Lots of Brady. And those, nope. There's here's a good one. Here's a great example. Where am I? Second overall. Take Lenny. This was back when Lenny was going in the first round every time, and I think it was fine. I think that was really sharp. I think Lenny was a borderline the 101 in these drafts. Then a lot has changed, but then. So I take Lenny in the first round, and I obviously went after the Bucks. Look at this. Marquise Brown. 14th overall. Lamar Jackson, 23rd overall with Mark Andrews. Come back with Gronk and Justin Jefferson. This team, this is like the worst team in the entire tournament. This is literally the worst team in the entire tournament. Lamar doesn't have a quarterback. Lenny is back, but took Dalvin and Justin Jefferson and a bunch of dudes not playing. And obviously Chris Godwin blew out his knee. But like, this wasn't unreasonable. Look at this. Dalvin's ADP was a little bit, but Lamar went 23rd overall, right? Godwin was an injury. Hollywood was going 14th overall because we expected them to make the playoffs. Then, obviously, that has changed. But so a lot has changed. This is an excellent question. Paul asks, should Fournette be back in the first round now that he's expected to play next week? The only issue I have with that, and I'm really trying to think about the Bucks a little bit more, because I don't want to be a slave to what we just saw this past week for sure, or the past 2 weeks. They barely beat the Jets and they kind of barely beat the Panthers. Two bad teams. And I'm trying not to, ultimately at the end of the day, they still have Tom Brady and they're a quality football team. But this is a team that we were counting on Lenny when we thought they had Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Gronk, Evans, healthy Lenny, a healthy defense. That's, they were one of the Super Bowl favorites, we thought. Then you lose Chris Godwin, you lose Antonio Brown. Even Cyril Grayson is hurt now. Not that he really matters that much, but he's hurt. Doesn't look like he's going to play this week. They're down to pick that their 3 wide receiver set is going to be Mike Evans, Tyler Johnson, and Brashad Perriman. They have some injuries on the defensive side as well. And so I struggle more with Fournette. I was very heavy Bucks when we first started this, and it was a lot easier to stack them then too. But I struggle with kind of honestly where the Bucks should go now, because of the team context, not because when you look at Mike Evans now without those guys, in a 1-game sample, he looks awesome. You're like, what do you mean? There's no Godwin and no AB and no Grayson. Evans is a smash. Fournette's back. He's probably a smash. Tyler Johnson, honestly, is probably a smash at his ADP. Gronk is definitely a smash. But in terms of projecting them moving forward, this is what I struggle with. Evans should be a first-round pick. Are we why is he different than Jamar Chase? They have the same. Jamar Chase probably has more upside, as we have seen already. Evans can't do that game that Jamar Chase can do. And the Bucks are, a shell of the team that we saw just relatively recently. And so that I fully admit that they are the team that I absolutely struggle with the most. See, I guess I'm struggling with these teams as well. So there's only six players. I'm struggling with the first round because this means so there's 3 Chiefs players. There's Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. There's Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. And then there's Evans and Chase. And I'm struggling with how to appropriately value. If you really value Mike Evans that highly, what is the difference? Why is he valued more highly than all those other guys? it's a really difficult situation to assess, I think, because like I said, if you ignore the team context, Mike Evans is a smash, and he probably is a first-round pick, right? Obviously doesn't have a bye. Matchup is fine against Philly in the first round, and he should command a lot of targets without those other guys. Gronk is really not that different than him, in my opinion, actually. They're fairly similar. Evans a little bit more upside. And then just the issue to me is like the team context. I mean, I will be the absolute first person if Brady comes out and makes a run to the Super Bowl with this team, without Godwin, without Evans, with a banged up Lenny, no other running backs really, a banged up defense. If he makes a run, I mean, huge hat tip to Tom for doing it this. But if we're basing it off of these last 2 weeks, it doesn't look great for the Bucs. It doesn't look great. Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers couldn't score on anyone for weeks. They just had quite a bit of success on the Bucs defense, and the Bucs have struggled relative to the Bucs standards the last 2 weeks to score. So, but this is an excellent point by Matt. You know that he is going to make a run. Somehow, 44-year-old Tom Brady, like, because AB's out here, throwing him under the bus and talking shit about him, now old man Brady is going to somehow make this run. I mean, what he did last year was borderline unbelievable. So would I really be surprised if he did? No. But, having watched all of these games the last 2 weeks, I do just like really, really struggle with the Bucs. And so I am I'm definitely higher on the Cowboys than the Bucs personally. Yes, I know. I know. I watched the game. I played DFS. I played Cyril Grayson and DJ Moore in DFS. It was a lot of backdooring going on with the old Bucs, offense. Let me pull up. Just go to ESPN. Let's share that. Go to box score. Need to play by play. End of quarter 2, 10-7, right? Bucs fumble, or Panthers fumble for a score by the Bucs. Panthers go for it in their own territory at the 28, and Bucs score. So, like, they didn't really hang 41. They had 10 points at halftime. Their defense scored, and the Bucs gave them the ball in the red zone. I'm just saying, if you would like to slide in my DMs and you want to bet on the Bucs futures, I'm more than happy to do so. But this is all you do is replace Keyshawn Vaughn and Le'Veon Bell with Leonard Fournette, and this is what we're looking at here. Brashad, 6 targets to Brashad Perryman, 7 targets to Tyler Johnson, Cameron Brate, and Scotty Miller, and Jalen Darden. And so, we have to make stands. Here's another thing I believe in strongly. Well, if we're for a lessons themed show, you can't cover every base in all of this. If you're higher on the Bucs than me, please, by all means. Like, they're just as likely as any of these other teams in the NFC outside of probably the Packers. Like I said, I prefer the Cowboys. I think the betting markets prefer the Cowboys too. I'm not really sure. But I would rather attack at cost. I would rather draft the 49ers. I'd definitely rather draft the Cardinals than the Bucs at cost. And I think the Eagles can beat them. Maybe that's my hot take. There's Eagles beat the Bucs. There's another. The Bucs definitely, they drew the they drew the Eagles, so they're in a better spot, than having to face the 49ers like the Cowboys are, for sure. But like, it's one game. I think the Eagles can beat them. I'm probably going to bet the Eagles. Certainly happy to hold my L if that's wrong. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if it was just this simple, like if it was literally just as simple as Tom Brady is going to win every Super Bowl, like I don't know, it's an easy printing press. I mean, Tom Brady didn't win every Super Bowl when he didn't have, all the best players around him. And he lost a Super Bowl with the best offense he's ever been on. At a certain point, this other stuff does matter. There's a reason why they struggled in the last 2 weeks. They turned it on later. Gronk smashed, right? Evans caught 2 touchdowns, but he was okay, right? 6 for 89 on 7 targets. But like, there's a reason why like the skill players matter. The skill players do matter. Tom is amazing. I'm not doubting. There's zero doubting of Tom Brady. Like none, literally none. There's a doubting of the team. If it was just about the quarterback, the Chargers would have won last night. But the Chargers defense stinks. And so the Raiders beat them. That's just how it goes. I agree with this, but like, it is what it is. The Jets, what's the Jets' strong suit? Nothing. Jets nearly beat the Bucs. Jets don't have a strong suit. And so I'm just saying the Bucs are like absolutely live. Still a very good team. Tom Brady is unbelievable. Gronk is a beast. Mike Evans is good. And, Lenny is coming back. This is not the Bucs. When we open these contests, these playoff contests, this is not the Bucs team you were drafting at all. Chris Godwin is their best wide receiver. Antonio Brown on a per route basis was the best player on the offense on a per snap per route basis. Say whatever we want about him as a person, but like they lost their 2 best offensive players. And my assumption is that so like JPP and Shaq Barrett didn't play Sunday. My assumption is that they're fine, but honestly, I haven't like looked into it. Right, I agree. The offensive line is still intact, but they're down their 2 best offensive players, and we're in the playoffs now. This isn't the regular season, right? Like you're gonna have to beat really, really good teams who are also still intact. And also, like, if the Packers lost Devontae Adams, we wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, it's fine. They got Rodgers. It's all good. No problem. Right? When you lose your best offensive players, the guy's getting open, it matters. That stuff matters, And so that's like I said, I'm investing my dollars into being lower on the Bucs than, like, I'm not taking Mike Evans in the first round. Well, if I have to take Mike Evans over a Chief, a Bill, Cooper Kupp, or Devontae Adams, like I'm not doing it for me personally. And then when we talk about kind of what we were talking about at the very top, where it was the ADP of the Bucs used to be able to get Bucs stacks in the gauntlet specifically, right? We have the Mitten 3 launched today, promo code Spike on Underdog. We have the Mitten 3, so it's a little bit different. If you want to get some Bucs stacks, of course, yeah. I'm still not certain where I'm going to invest all my resources, but I would if I were drafting 150 Mitten teams, I would have some Bucs stacks for sure. But like in the gauntlet, you used to be able to get all these Bucs a whole lot cheaper, and now the team is worse and their ADPs are higher. And so it's like outside of Fournette, who I think is still probably a pretty darn good pick at ADP. But there's all right. I mean, this conversation is so good, so perfect for this like subject of like, how do we manipulate these drafts in this like crazy ever-changing environment? Every week in a playoff draft, right? They opened a month ago or something. Every week we have like changing probability of just making the playoffs, period. changing probability of winning the Super Bowl, making a run in the playoffs. Like we put all the onus for a month basically on like just making the teams that like we think are going to make the playoffs, and we were wrong about like 3 of them. And then right, we'll move off the Bucks here, but like this is not a 1-game DFS slate. It's not a regular season best ball contest. Drafting top round guys, your team, they need to win games, like multiple. Like if the Chiefs were really bad right now, we wouldn't be drafting those guys. And the reason why Tyreek and Travis Kelce go up there is not only because of condensed target shares, but because they're one of the Super Bowl favorites. They're the second Super Bowl favorite, despite not having the bye. If it was just about condensed target shares, why does Julio Jones not get drafted on the team with the bye and the best, air quotes, right? They're not the best, on the best team in the AFC. Why aren't you drafting Julio Jones? That's a condensed offense to 3 dudes. Nobody wants to draft them. Their Super Bowl probability is just as good as the Bucks, right? What are you doing? So we'll just turn this into a fun strategical conversation about the best ball playoffs. The Bucks are such a good talking point because, I mean, can you think of a team that has had more change like leading into this playoff run? Like if Tom Brady hadn't already made, $1 trillion and had a supermodel wife, I might feel bad for them. But like you lose Chris Godwin, in my opinion, their best wide receiver. Antonio Brown, say whatever we want about him, was playing at an absolutely elite level. And the defense has not been very good. The running game is not the focus of their offense. The passing game is the focus of their offense. And now they're like I love Gronk as a beast, but you're relying upon an old Gronk to win you games in the playoffs. Mike Evans is not really the kind of wide receiver that like just goes and wins you games by getting a bunch of targets, really. Like he's good, but he's more akin to a Mike Williams style guy. Like he doesn't really like just like get open all the time. You know what I mean? He's like a deep threat and a contested catch kind of guy. Godwin and AB were so helpful for their offense because they gelled so well with Brady, and then Evans was like such a good, unbelievable like mix with those guys. They had the perfect mix. That's why you saw my teams, like all of my wild card teams are like Buck stacks. So trust, no one was higher on the Bucks than me. I was taking Lenny 101. I was all in like Buck stacks. I was on board with them making a run. I think that people are using those injuries and catapulting the Bucks when you take it's kind of like in DFS. When you come into a DFS slate on a Sunday, you'll get a team have a bunch of injuries, right? And so they have like one starter left. One of their main wide receivers is left, and everybody is like, oh, they're just going to throw to him every play. We're going to boost his projection. We're going to boost his target share, blah, blah, blah. And when you take a step back, you're like, yeah, but the offense is probably going to be bad now. And the Bucs offense is not going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination. That is not what I'm saying. But what happens so often in these situations is that's what people will do. They will, take that, like look at it in this vacuum and say, oh, well, look, Evans is just going to get all the targets, which, spoiler alert, as we were looking here, we just saw this game happen. They threw the ball 37 times and Mike Evans got 7 targets. So the target share wasn't condensed. The target share was condensed to Gronk. So Gronk had 10 targets, 7 catches for 137 yards. Evans just so happened to have the touchdowns. But Mike Evans had the same amount of targets as Tyler Johnson and 1 more than Brashad Perriman. So I think the theory of Mike Evans is going to draw all these targets now seems logical, but in practice, it's not totally true. They still threw to Perriman and Tyler Johnson. Now Lenny is coming back to probably draw a few more running back, right? They only threw to the running backs 3 times in that game. And Mike Evans is not really that kind of a guy. And so it's like in DFS, it sounds like, oh yeah, everybody's out. They're just going to throw it to the one remaining good guy that they have left. And then when you see it in practice, it's not really as true as we want it to be from a projection standpoint. And then the offense is just worse. Now, this offense may not, like I said, it's still going to be good. But the offense may not be quite as good. It looks like the Chiefs are going to be totally fine. I was a little concerned about that, not against the Steelers. I think that they could do the McCall Hardman, Byron Pringle thing again and probably beat the Steelers. But with the Tyreek, Kelsey, Darrell Williams injuries, I think that was something to at least consider, right? For injuries, things to think about, lessons, if you will, to learn for the upcoming week. But it seems that they are fine. So I want to come back to Paul's question. What are you doing at 6 if the top 5 go by ADP? Let me share the ADP again. I should have kept it up there. Here we go. Playoffs. Top 5 ADP. Okay. Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs. What are you doing at 6? So here's where I'll start. 1, I'm outrageously high on the I was just about to say on the Bucs. You guys have ruined my brain. I can't even talk. And it's really unfortunate because, like I said, so like all my early teams are Bucs stacks or like at least secondary Bucs stacks. And so now I'm unfortunately having to talk negatively. I think they were like just such a smash in these early drafts. So anyway, what are you doing at 6 if the top 5 go by ADP? Top 5 in ADP here, as you see. Yeah. So you can take Brady Evans, right? That's what people are doing. That's what I don't want to do. You're paying the peak price for the Bucs when they're at their worst, right? Now in Mitten 3, like the price is the price, right? It just opened. You don't have to deal with past ADPs or whatever. In the gauntlet, you're paying 1-2 turn prices for a team that has had all of these injuries. It's not even as much, right? My opinion is I want to be lower on them than the market, but that's not even like necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, as we talked about at the top with all the crazy ADP shifts and everything, I don't want to buy the top when the team is at the bottom, right? And everybody is buying the top because everybody is just like, oh, look, Mike Evans is going to get all these targets, which didn't actually end up being true. And like we're not considering the fact that, oh, maybe like why is Tom Brady better than Dak Prescott? Like legit question. Tom Brady goes, if we look at ADP, 13.1, Dak Prescott goes 29.5. That doesn't make any sense to me. So why would I take Brady at the 1-2 turn when I can get a superstar, when I can get it's possible you could get, Kelsey Mahomes. It's possible. You can get Kelsey Mahomes. You can take Josh Allen. The other thing about the Bills, like I said, I'm very high on the Bills. You don't have to have Stephon Diggs to stack the Bills, right? Josh Allen runs, as we've seen, and Stephon Diggs is awesome, and he's definitely the target leader. But it's much closer to like the Dallas situation where like, do you have CD? Do you have Amari? You want one of those guys, I think. But like, does it really matter? Like if you stack Allen with Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, you're totally fine. Especially if you have Singletary, totally fine. So Josh Allen, I think, is in play right there. The Bills matchup, yeah. So I'm not as worried about the Patriots, but the Patriots can beat anybody. That's what they do. They're going to come out and run the ball and play defense. I'm not that worried about first round matchups. That's another good talking point. I'm glad you brought that up, Matt. That the matchup for the Bills in the first round is a little bit scary. Same thing for the Cowboys, right? You would have kind of hoped that the Cowboys got like the Eagles in the first round. Obviously, they did not. The Bucs got the Eagles. But like this team's your team is going to have to win tough games to make the Super Bowl, right? If I'm drafting at the 1-2 turn, if you can't beat the Patriots, were you going to beat the Chiefs? Were you going to beat, whatever everybody likes the Bucs here? Were you going to beat the Bucs? Were you going to beat the Packers? Were you going to beat the Cowboys? Were you going to beat the Rams? You know what I mean? And so like, I'm a little less worried about the matchup thing because gonna have to beat good teams regardless. I understand, we obviously would love the easiest path for sure, which is another reason to love the Chiefs. They play the Steelers, the worst playoff team by a wide margin. I guess the Raiders, Eagles, Steelers. Pick your poison. Who do you think is the worst between we'll get to that one in a second. That's a great one. Okay, so back to the question. 6th spot. God, yes, Matt. Getting the 6th spot is tough right now. Matt says, happened back-to-back drafts for me just now. The 6th spot is brutal. Top 5, I do agree with you guys, 100%. Clear top 5. I as I have mentioned, I'm very high on the Bills. I think you can take Josh Allen without taking another, without taking Stephon Diggs. Sorry. I think CD 100%. Sir Shibe says CD Amari is good too. You can take CD Amari there. You could take Josh Allen and one of those guys. Like I said, the 49ers matchup does kind of suck, but if you follow me on Twitter, I already posted that I bet the Cowboys. I'm definitely going to be backing the Cowboys this week. I'm not a believer in Jimmy G in these playoffs, and maybe he'll prove me wrong. But I think the Cowboys are just a better team, and we'll see. The Cowboys have played down to some bad competition, so that could absolutely happen again. I wish they had Michael Gallup, but I'm just still betting on the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a team I want to bet on. The Cowboys are a team with as much, Super Bowl equity as anyone in the NFC, sans the Packers. And they're all, they're like, we're scrolling down the first page here. We don't get to the first Cowboy till the 14th pick. We don't get to the next Cowboy till the almost 20th pick. So I'm just going to keep investing in the Cowboys, kind of in that range, right? You can have either of Zeke or Pollard. Cedric Wilson is cheap. Dalton Schultz is cheap. So I'm going ham on the Cowboys, which means you need to bet on the 49ers this weekend. If my best ball portfolio needs the Cowboys to win, they're not going to win. Bet the 2 things we've figured out. Figured out 2 things on this show. I am anti-Bucks making a run, so you need to bet Bucks Super Bowl futures, and I'm pro-Cowboys, and also like being pro-Cowboys, actually perfect on both sides. Anti-Tom Brady team making a run, and pro the freaking Dallas Cowboys making a run. And so if I'm believing in those 2 things, bet the opposite. Bet go get a second mortgage. Cole says, I love the Cowboys too. They probably have the most all-around talent, both sides of the ball, but hoping they can be consistent enough to win 4 tough games. That's the thing. I thought you nailed it. I couldn't agree more. Overall, pure talent on the roster, both sides of the football. The Cowboys, it's Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills. Like the Packers are honestly not that talented of a team. They're definitely in that mix, right? But like the Packers actually have a fair bit of issues on their roster. It's just that you have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Jair Alexander's coming back, Bakhtiari's coming back, so they're really good. But pure roster talent, the Cowboys are right there with anybody in the league. The issue is like they don't do it. They absolutely just don't do it. Bucks are definitely going to make the comment. Bucks Niners. That is so true. That is such a good comment. Bucks Niners conference final. Ship it right now. Bet that. Can you bet specific conference finals matchups? If you can, that's what you should do, because clearly that's what's gonna happen. Okay, so that's another lead into I'm gonna hop in a draft. We can talk it through. Mitten 3. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get in it. Let's do a mitten. And we can talk through some of that, because one thing I want to do, talking about lessons, right? Lord, that filled fast. All right, 105. Perfect. We just talked about the 106. One thing that I do want to do, lesson that I've learned over the amount of playoff drafts I've done, which isn't like a ton, I don't know, 100, like Eagles, if you're still watching, you sicko, he did 150 in 3 days. Like, I know there are people out there grinding a lot more than me, but I think something that I've learned is I want to take a stand in X percentage of my portfolio of playoff teams, right? As we have just talked a lot about, I'm super, super bullish on basically the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys. Only one NFC team, right? And 2 AFC teams. And so I want to take stands on those teams in about as many of my drafts as possible, up to a certain point. Then what I would like to do is get kind of weird in some of these other drafts. Somebody on Twitter was asking about how many teams do you think, are going to actually have enough players, 5, right, to fill the roster spots in the Super Bowl? How many of the 94 teams that advance to the championship, or however many it is, I haven't looked at them in 3. How many that advance will be able to fill the Super Bowl roster? And the answer is, depends who's playing in the Super Bowl, right? If it is Bills, Cowboys, something I like, or Chiefs, Cowboys, or Bucks are one, right? If it's one of these teams that you can easily fit them together, or that are popular, everybody's going to have 5 or 6 of them, at least. But if it's 49ers, Bengals, as Chad says here, he's very heavy on the Bengals. If it's Bengals and 49ers in the Super Bowl, not that many are going to have 5 or 6 guys from that game, right? And so I want to have a requisite number. Now, I'm about to say this, and I'm still taking Stephon Diggs, because I do think the top 5 is a clear thing, and I can do those other stacks afterwards. But I wanted to do a draft here before we wrapped up, because that's a big thing for me. Is I do think I want to have a certain amount of my portfolio that is I've decided this is the stand I want to take on these playoffs, and I'm comfortable losing basically all of those teams, right? If the Bills and the Cowboys lose in the first round, it's over for me. That's just the truth of the matter. It's over for me. But if that happens, I want to also then have a set percentage of my team that's let's just embrace the anarchy. Give me the freaking Eagles, Titans Super Bowl. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but you get the point, right? I want to do something like that. The Titans are actually a really good team. As Matt says here, I'd even say Titans would be low owned, which is crazy, right? They have the bye, and they're definitely going to be low owned. Well, now I have to say, God damn it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I have to take Josh Allen here because I was gifted it. I'm going to take the Allen Diggs stack, and then we're going to get funky with the NFC teams. And I do think the NFC is quite a bit more interesting to do this with. The Cardinals are super cheap, right? No one drafts the Eagles. The 49ers are reasonably affordable. You can do secondary Packers, right? MVS is cheap. Lazard is cheap. Dillon is cheap. And the NFC to me is we spent too much time talking about the Bucks. We've talked about the Cowboys. We haven't even gotten to the Rams. And would you be surprised if any of these teams advanced out of the NFC? I wouldn't. The Eagles. But outside of the Eagles, would you be honestly, legitimately, truly surprised if any of them advanced? Not really, I don't think. And so, but the market is not treating them all the same. So I think that is interesting. Someone posted a team in Discord that was a super fragile Green Bay stack, like 5 players, only 5 players going in round 1. But I found it really interesting now because you can scoop the Raiders, the Eagles, Pittsburgh, and whatever, and get out of round 1, and then as Sir Shibe says that, and then rely on Green Bay. As long as you're setting it up structurally right, so that you're not losing everyone besides Green Bay. You need more than just Green Bay, right? But as long as you're not losing everybody and you have Super Bowl combinations set up, yeah, I think that's fun. I think that's what we should be doing in these. Now Matt says going in on a Titans deck. That was like something that was when I said I want to do a draft and like talk about some of these kind of a little bit more off the board stacks. The Titans were one. Now, obviously, that's ruined. But okay, so I went Allen, Diggs, and now Fournette is here. But Gronk is gone. Okay, all right. Then I'm not taking the Bucks. I'm not taking the. God blessed. This is awful. I mean, I have to take. All right. Here's what we're gonna do. I lied. I'm gonna take the Cowboys as 1 secondary stack. Cowboys as 1 secondary stack. Gonna do a primary Bills stack. Cowboys as 1 secondary stack. And then, because even if I lose Zeke here, that's okay. I can go. I'm just gonna add some NFC guys to the queue real quick. Odell is fine. Where's like the good NFC? Oh, anyway, here we go. Maybe I'll take Debo here. Pass on Zeke. Where did Singletary go in this? He's already gone, right? Oh no. Oh my God, I missed him. I gotta take Singletary. Never mind. Here's what we're gonna do. Hopefully. What is your name? Post de Leon. People in your underdog names. Yeah, Titans as all right. I'm taking Singletary. We're gonna go. Bills are making the Super Bowl. I'm only taking 1 running back, and it's Singletary. So Allen, Singletary, Diggs. Obviously, I have Amari set up here, and then we're just gonna have some fun. We're gonna have some fun with a bunch of NFC guys. The fun thing about doing this is doing single QB, single running back. You can as long as you have the Super Bowl covered, like you can have like one-offs in the NFC, right? It's like you want to take Devontae Smith in the 10th round. Like the Eagles are probably not making the Super Bowl, but what if? You want to take a one-off Allen Lazard. You want to take a one-off Van Jefferson. Like you still have outs to winning in that Super Bowl, right? And so I like these kind of structures. Paul says last year in the mitten, just under half the teams in the final could fill all 5 spots. But as Paul says, Kansas City and Tampa Bay was very easy to stack and super chalky, right? There were teams in the final I know Lenny was a late round pick in those drafts, but like you could get Tyreek and Kelsey, and you could get Evans, and you could get Godwin, right? You could get all of these guys and one of the quarterbacks in those drafts. That is on many, many pairings now. That is not possible. Or not only is it not possible on certain pairings, it is not being done much on other pairings, right? People aren't doing that with 49ers Titans. And like that could be the Super Bowl. I'm not betting on that, but it's well within the range of outcomes that is the Super Bowl. Cole says, for backdoor Bills stacks at running back, do you prefer Breida or Moss? Moss for me. It is Moss. It is Moss for me. Sir Shibe says there was also a 4-way chop in the mitten. Got to get unique. Love that. All right, now I'm taking Debo. Oh, I took Amari. Whatever. It's fine. I'm going to take a bunch of NFC dudes and kind of figure it out with my either 4 or 5 man build stack. Put Knox in the queue. Put Kirk in the queue. Schultz. I like Schultz. Schultz would round out the Cowboys stack. MVS. Van Jefferson. Lazard. Kittle. Little surprised the 49ers ADPs. I mean, they're up, but I'm a little surprised they're not up more, I think. No, I don't. Typically, we talked about this in Discord earlier, where I don't really want to have obviously the first round matchup, right? So I'm going to lose either 49ers or Dallas players. But if I kind of go about this the way I was like starting to think about going about this, I think I need to actually, where is Gabe? Is Gabe going? Hold on, let me think about this 1 second, then I'll come back to it. I'm gonna take Kirk. I'm almost a little more agnostic to this idea of having San Fran and Dallas players in these in like a type of structure like this, where I made a commitment to just onslaughting Buffalo. And what my normal preference would be, as we've outlined before on previous streams like this, is something like 4 + 2 + 2 + 2. I'm interested in on the secondary side when it's probably maybe only in this, but I guess I would say also in the Rams Cardinals game, having like being willing to sacrifice 1 or 2 players from a game in order to get like what is the upside. Like, so I've made this bet on the Bills, right? I'm going to have 4 or 5 Bills players. Having on the other side, like a borderline sacrificial lamb is obviously not ideal, but I've been thinking about it more where like, I don't want to be 100% opposed to it. You know, and this is, I've been stewing way too many thoughts today about all this. And I've probably gal-brained it a little bit too hard, but I've been thinking about this. And I think that the San Fran Dallas matchup, right? I would not have said this a week ago before we got this matchup, but that's one that like, those are 2 of the teams I am most bullish on in terms of their upside. And so I don't want to like totally write them off. And this, I was interested in leaving myself open to this possibility, a 5 and then a bunch of one-offs from the other team, which is, as you see here, I also left myself open to this, where it's like, get me to the Super Bowl, and I almost pray it's one of the low-owned teams that gets me there. See, so like now I'm going to take Gabe to kind of like let the market, let my draft dictate to me what you want me to do with those next. Do I go 5-1-1, 5 with a bunch of one-offs, or do I start pairing them together? But I'm just like, the Dallas and San Fran thing is just something I've been thinking about a little bit more, where I'm experimenting with it. Paul, you talked about doing some experimenting and stuff in like the mitten. And it's something I've been thinking about today, where I probably should, if I'm going to do it in the mitten, where I'm experimenting a little bit with like, I know I'm sacrificing 1 or 2 roster spots, but like the upside of those players on those teams is so great that like, we were talking about the Bucs earlier. You could do it with the Bucs too. The problem is the Bucs are so expensive versus like I can get Debo in the 4th or 5th round, right? I can get Schultz later. I can get whoever later. But if you wanted to do that with like a Tyler Johnson or something, sure too. Same idea. But like being willing to do that, I'm just interested in playing around with that. The things I've thought about now in terms of strategy for these contests, like almost like makes me sick to my stomach that I'm doing this. So I took Kirk. Who are my let's try the 5. Let's try that. We're going to try out Paul's We're going to try out Paul's 5, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. What's the point of doing this if we're not going to Galbrain it? Ethan says, I think 2-2 is fine. 3-3 offense. Totally agree. I think you can 2-2, 1-1, or 2-1 from the same game. I would absolutely not do a 3-3 from the same game, personally. My stance on that. All right, I'm 6 picks away, so let's look at the board really quick. Is anybody in here? That's why I don't recognize a lot of these names. We have Mahomes, Evans, Fournette, Mixon, Stafford, Dillon, Harris, MVS team from the 6th spot, which is interesting. Kelsey, Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Zeke, CEH, Knox, Lazard, Kyler. What? That's from the 3. That's from the 4. Am I missing something? Ricky has Tyreek, Brady, Gronk, Darryl, Pringle. 5th round Pringle. Wowzers. Rojo, Grayson, Pollard. Okay, I'm willing to give up projection to get my correlation. That's giving up a lot of projection. 102 has Devontae, Jamar Chase, CD, T. Higgins. Did he get Burrow? He went Dak, Burrow. Okay. Connor, Akers, Edmonds. This is a weird draft. Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, Odell Beckham, Sony, Derek Carr in the 6th round. Hunter, I guess he got ran. I guess the 101 got ran out of quarterback. Now I'm more excited about this team now. All right. I have a Cowboy, right? Yeah, I have a Cowboy, and I have a 49er. So I need NFC teams. We'll keep Van in the queue. We'll put Tyler Johnson in the queue. Van or Higbee. We'll put Devontae Smith. Let's go Van from the Rams. And then it's down to Tyler Johnson, Devontae Smith, and Goddard from the Eagles to close out this 5-1-1-1. Yeah, that guy must be listening, Matt says, and going anti-you with a buck stack. Yeah. Sir Shebe says, I like the elite one-off. You want that high upside bring back, even if it's only for 2 games. I agree. Totally agree. All right. Nothing like deciding between Tyler Johnson, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Probably going to take Tyler Johnson, even though I just spent 20 minutes talking negatively about the Bucs. Yikes. Maybe I'll take an Eagle just to... If we're going to have fun, let's have fun, right? So 5-man Bills stack with Amari, Debo, Christian Kirk, Van Jefferson, and one of these 3 guys. Actually, the more I think about it, I think I might take Goddard. Like a guy. I actually feel like this draft was so kind of bad that advancing is not going to be as much of an issue as maybe it is in some other drafts. And giving myself a 10th round pick that is like not being drafted very frequently, I'm going to take Goddard. If we're going to Galbrain it, let's Galbrain it. Yeah, what a draft, man. Yeah, who was the... Oh, yeah. Matt, I was going to look up. Matt says the guy with the buck stack. The guy with the buck stack takes Tyreek, Brady, Gronk, Darryl, Pringle, Rojo, Grayson, comes back with Perriman. Got to get Tyler Johnson here, right? One off Pollard was interesting. There it is. Tyler Johnson. This person, I don't know who you are. Shout out to you. I hope the Bucs win the Super Bowl for you. Did my first big mitten earlier. Underdog got me. They got me with the push notification. We only need a couple more for the big mitten. Join now. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll do that. I'm actually on a break. Got me. Yeah, isn't that so, like Mitten? Oh, is it? Am I missing something? Oh, there we go. Mitten 3, first team, full draft. What a weird draft, man. So I went. I'm clearly easily persuaded into what you guys start talking about, right? We start talking about the Bucs, and I almost took a Buck. Start talking about roster construction or whatever, and Paul mentions this 5-1, this 5-1-1-1-1-1 team, and I'm like, that sounds good. Let's do that. So I end up doing that. But that was a very fun draft, and I think a little bit of a little bit of kind of a summary of a lot of the different things that we were talking about, right? Like the crazy shifting ADPs, some people doing some crazy stacking, some people having some like dead teams, and then going through some different scenarios that we talked about as I was going through that team and landing on this kind of like very unique off the wall five Bills with like praying for one bring back in the Super Bowl. But I actually think, those are that's not like going to be like a staple of my portfolio, but it is something I'm going to make sure that I have in there. As we wrap up here, Ethan says it's funny because if you drafted that way weeks earlier, you could get away with it, given how many good teams missed the playoffs. That is very true. Perfect call back to the very beginning of the show, where this is like a lessons type of show, but I wanted to really talk about the playoff contest because obviously we only have a week before we can get into it. We have months to talk about, let's talk about zero running back again. Let's talk about Josh Jacobs. Let's talk about David Montgomery. We don't need to do that today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about these best ball contests and just some like looking literally like, let's look at the changing ADPs, right? We can talk about it and say, oh, you remember when Jamar Chase fell 10 picks? Like I showed you a team where Devin Singletary was the last pick of the draft, and now he's going, at 20th overall. Somebody mentioned earlier in chat, he's going 17th overall, right? Let's actually like talk through some of that stuff. And then it's on our minds when we go to start getting into some of these drafts and think through, right? Then we got into the Bucs conversation. Perfect. It's a perfect segue. Like, if you're still like, if you think that the Bucs are still like going to go absolutely make a run, by all means, buy Tom Brady, Evans, Gronk, Lenny, all these guys. But, it's a good conversation about like they used to be cheaper and now maybe there's some issues with their, Super Bowl odds or whatever. And so it's a perfect place to leave it. I'm trying to confirm a schedule for the rest of the week. Going to be doing more playoff drafts. Definitely going to get a big mitten on the books at some point this week. I'm not exactly sure. Going to get a drafters stream if you have not done any of these drafters playoff drafts. Absolutely. I'm bad, frankly, at the drafters regular season format. With the cumulative scoring and everything. I don't think I'm very good at it. I know I'm not very good at it, but I'm very interested. I'm very intrigued by this playoff contest that they have. It's a $30K total prize pool, $10K to first, $11 entry, promo code Spike Week on drafters, and you'll get a free ticket into that contest. But going to try to mix in a drafters draft, a big mitten draft, and maybe some more drafts. And then we always have now moving forward drafting on Fridays. So Friday at this time we'll be drafting. And then Wednesday, special guest coming on to do the Best Ball Bros show, but a little bit more coming absolutely ASAP on the schedule for the rest of the week. I know it's a huge drafting week. So I promise that we will be on it, and you'll hear more from me and more from the Spike Week Twitter account very soon. But thank you guys. As always, tons of fun. Thanks for hanging out Awesome conversation. I love the back and forth on the Bucs, on Tom Brady, the GOAT. I love all of that. So I'll be back probably tomorrow, but I'll hit you up soon with more on that. Catch you guys later. See ya.